So let's talk about the four methods. First is the logic-based methods, or use the formal rules to model a knowledge. Now, the knowledge base and how the knowledge base will be created in a AI, how what kind of a different methods or the four methods we are going to represent, with the help of which we are going to represent the knowledge in a AI. So first is the logic-based systems. These systems prioritize the precision and are ideal for the deterministic environment. Now, what is the propositional logic? So first is the logic. What is the propositional logic? It represents the knowledge as a declarative statements when we are using, where we are using it in a various deterministic environment. So propositional logic is, as you must have studied in the mathematics also, the propositional logic represent the knowledge as a declarative statements or the propositions linked by the logical operators like and, or not. For example, if it rains and the ground is wet, then the road is slippery. Both the conditions will be there, right? And same means rain should be there and the ground is wet, then the road is slippery. While simple, it struggles it with complex relationships, often follow the format if condition then conclusion when we are going to code it. For instance, in a knowledge-based system, you have logical based. When we talk about the if statement, the if statement consists of the logical statement, which is the logical test, and then the true statement and the false statement. And if an object is red and round, then the object might be an apple. So number of conditions that need to be, or the number of, if the number of conditions is present and we need to have the each and every condition to be true, then we are using the logical statement or the logical operator and if the number of conditions are present and we want only any condition to be true, for the true statement representation we are using or, and when there is a opposite of a statement, then we are using a logical statement, we are using a not. This is completely propositional logic. So in a syllabus, first we need to understand the different core methods, and then in detail we will talk about the first order logic also. Now, second one is the first order logic in the logic based methods. What is the first order logic? It expands the propositional logic by introducing the variables now identifiers and the predicates. So three things we need to understand, and we will discuss these all things in a detail. Or simply FOL can express a statement like all humans, right, are mortal, right? It supports the reasoning but demands significant computational resources, right? So here we are talking about the different AI tools will be applied here for the logic-based rules to analyze the contracts for the companies. So simple in a first order logic, it further extend the propositional logic where we are using a logical statement or the logical test statement with the various logical operators and or not. Now the variables, quantifiers and the predicates will also be introduced. Now, what is another method to represent the knowledge? The structural or the structured representation. Now, in our syllabus, we are going to discuss about the semantic webs also and the frames also. Another method is these methods organize our knowledge hierarchically or through the networks. Now we are talking about the networks, mimicking how humans categorize the information, right? So what do you understand by the networks? Simply, here we are talking about the semantic network, and when we are talking about the semantic network, what you understand by the semantic network means the meaningful or simply what are the semantic networks in the natural language processing. When if we talk about, so semantic network is a graphical representation of a knowledge, because here we are talking about the hierarchically or the network. So semantic networks are the graphical representation of a knowledge where the concepts like the words or the ideas are nodes and the relationship between them are represented by the edges here. We will talk about various semantic networks also. So what is a semantic network? It's simply the relationship between the nodes, and that nodes relationship will be represented by various edges, and the nodes represent the various words or the ideas here. So here, as you can say here, it represents knowledge as a nodes and the edges. So when we are going to understand the concepts and the relationship between that concepts, we are using a semantic network. For example, dog links to animals and is a with the help of a is a connection. So they simplify the inheritance reasoning but lack formal semantics here. Right? So here we will talk about various semantic networks also that represent the structure representation, that represent the graphical representation simply. Now another is a frames. Frames is group related to attributes into a structured frames. Now related attributes will be grouped together, like a vehicle here frame may include slots like the wheels, engine type, and the fuel, and the frame excel in default reasoning but struggle with the exceptions here. Right? So when we are talking about a default reasoning, when we are talking about the understanding of a particular data in a particular grouping manner, then we are talking about the frames here. Or how can anyone explain the frames? कोई explain कर सकता है? How we can define the frames in AI? Simply we are saying that in AI, basically we use the frames that are the data structure, that are the different data structures. We can combine it, we can group it of a related attributes, right, into a structured frame. So it's a data structure used in an AI to represent the various situations or the scenarios. And simply we are basically representing of a data or the data structure that represent a particular movement here, right? So in that case, we are using a frame here. Now, what is the ontology in the AI? What do you understand by the ontologies? Here, in which we are talking about ontologies, it's another kind of a structural representation of a knowledge, which basically talked about a particular subject area or a domain here. So ontologies here we are talking about is an structured representation of a knowledge which about a particular subject or a particular domain here, which define the concepts, hierarchies, and the relationship within a domain using a standard using a standards like the web ontology language, and the ontologies power semantic search engines and healthcare diagnostic by the standardizing terminology. So here we are using a domain specific relationships, hierarchies, and the concepts, the data structure, which is the domain specific here, and it's a structural representation. So e-commerce platforms use the ontologies to classify the product and enhance the search accuracy. We are using in a various search engines here, right? So when we are talking about the particular e-commerce platform, it uses the ontologies, which is work on a particular domain to classify a product according to a domain, and it basically depends on it enhances the search accuracy. Now, another knowledge representation is the probabilistic model. Now, what is the probabilistic model? As the name is saying, the probability will be used. So here we are using a different kinds of a network. What different kinds of a network we are talking about here? First, these systems handle the uncertainty by assigning the probabilities to outcomes. So different situational, different uncertainties will be there, and we will discuss about their use cases also where we use it. So what do you understand by the probabilitics models? First probabilitic model we are talking about here, the Bayesian network. It's used the directed graphs to model the causal relationships first. Then each node represent a variable and the edges denote the conditional dependencies based on a different conditions. For instance, a Bayesian network can predict the likelihood of an equipment failure based on maintenance history and the users. Here we are talking about a particular application also. Another kind of a so here we had talked about the structural representation, right? Another kind of a probabilistic model, we have talked about the Bayesian network here. Another kind of a probabilistic model, we are going to talk about the Markov decision processes. It is another probabilistic model which model the sequential decision making in the dynamic environments now when the data is going to be changed. So here it helps the robotic systems navigate the obstacles by evaluating the potential actions and the rewards. So here, based on a probability weather prediction systems, combine the historical data and the sensor input using a probability model to forecast the storms here. The future has been predicted here. Now, what is the distributed representation? When we are talking about the knowledge representation, different knowledge representation, now this is the distributed representation which is going to be used, which we are using for a big data also. Now, the modern AI leverages neural networks to encode a knowledge as a numerical vectors, capturing the latent pattern in a data. It's using a distributed way of representing the knowledge. So embedding is convert the words, images, or the entities into a dense vectors. Now here you can see that we are talking about convert the words, images, or the entities. We are talking about the different format of a data. Word embeddings like word to vector map synonyms to nearby vectors, enabling the semantic analysis. Now, another distribution we are talking about combining the graph structures with embedding to represent the entities here. So here we are talking about combining the graph structures with the embedding to represent the entities like the people or the places, their relationship, and the Google knowledge graph, and hence the search result by linking the related concepts here. Now the distribution will be there according to that the further predictions will be there.